All righty, my clock says 11, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Um, I thought this might be a short meeting, but then as more and more things kept coming out, so we're going to try and get going on it and go as quickly as possible. First thing I wanted to talk about is the Missouri Evergreen Consortium Users Conference. It's going to be Friday, March 21st. Of this year. This year's conference is going to feature a variety of breakout sessions, so you can select to some degree what you want. There'll be two sessions going on concurrently, and then of course a main opening session. Steve Potter sent out the schedule, and that is tentative. I think that there was also a call for another someone to lead another session. So if you have an idea of something that would be good for the greater Evergreen community, pass that on to Steve, and maybe we could get that last one kind of nailed down. Room reservation blocks are open. You can go ahead and make your reservation. It's going to be at Stony Creek this year. So I've already turned mine in. Yay. I was afraid it would get too far down in my emails and I would forget to go back into it and then be sad later. So having to hunt through a long time. The next thing I wanted to talk about is courier issues. So we've had some discussion going back, good discussion going back and forth between libraries about some potential changes that we could do that might help things actually get to the right place. That seems to be, there's lots of W's, there's lots of C's, there's lots of M's, and it's easy to get things accidentally into the wrong thing. I sincerely believe every library is trying to do their very best on that, but mistakes do happen. So just a couple of things to go over, and then we'll get into maybe discussing the ideas for changes. So make sure that you have the correct courier label on the bag that you're sending out. Some libraries have more than one pickup location, and sometimes those pickup locations are not even in the same courier hub. And so it's really important that we get the correct courier label on that bag. It should match the transit slips inside your bag or box or tote or whatever you're using, should match what is on that courier label. And so if it doesn't, then there's a little, stop, get a different one, put it on there. Make sure you follow the MALA guidelines for placement of those labels. That means on a box, you are going to have one on at least two sides. So two labels on that. Make sure you package audiovisual materials so that we're protecting the cases. Sending them loose in a big box is not really protecting our AV materials. So if you can get them into a padded envelope, or if you can add padding to your box or whatever you're sending it in, that's going to give more protection to those cases. Don't zip tie a delivery bag, just zip it up. If your bag is to where it's not going to stay zipped, it probably needs to be sent back to MALA so that they can get new ones. If your zipper is broken, do that. Okay, so now into the conversation about some of the changes that might or might not help. And these would be library specific. You could choose to do some of this or not. The MALA labels need to stay the same. We can't do anything to change that because that will mess up Henry's. I mean, Yeah, we're just not going to change those. So, Darcy, I know you had some kind of idea. I don't know if you've worked into it anymore. Are you on the call, Darcy?
I am, and I think what I was seeing was like I never meant to change the mallow labels. I just meant that if libraries wanted, they might adapt a receipt template. Like our IT guy has ours set up to where the short code is like giant at the top, which is super helpful. You know, you don't have to like put on your reading glasses, or I don't, I guess. Um and but one day I was sorting through the materials on our counter, and for whatever reason, my brain thought it saw the long library name, and I thought, oh man, if we could put that at the top, because it was like Kirkwood or Brentwood or one of the MLC. I thought, man, that would super helpful because there's MCL, there's MLC, and all that. And I thought, man, if we could just adjust our template to make it easier to see where these libraries are going, there would be even less of a chance for mistakes or multiple piles for the same library. However, what I think I actually saw was the MALA label, which simply says like Kirkwood Public Library or whatever it is, and not the library long name. And so there's no real way to put, that in a receipt template, if that makes sense. Like
Exactly.
so, let's just use Kirkwood. The short code is like MLC-K or something like that. I'm just, something like that. And so then the library long name in Evergreen is like MLC-Kirkwood. And so at a glance, when you look at a receipt that has either the short name or the long name, you're like, oh, that goes filed in the M's, or it might get stuck with Marion County, MCL. And so I thought I remembered seeing somewhere where it just said Kirkwood, and I thought, oh man, if we could somehow stick that on the receipt, then you could at a glance be like, oh, Kirkwood, that goes with the K's. But where I actually saw that was on the mallow label, which is not a field that Equinox could put on a like it. There's a number of fields that you can add to a receipt template, and I thought, oh, maybe I could ask them to add one, but that's not even a field. So it was kind of a terrible idea. It seemed like a really great idea at the time.
I don't I don't think it seems like a terrible idea. And if we look at the information that's available in the org unit, maybe we could. I mean, the name of the library is not MLC dash Kirkwood, it's just Kirkwood. So maybe I think there's something here. I'm gonna poke.
That would be awesome. I love poking around. I even thought, because every library can do whatever they want with their template because as long as it, follows the, don't have patron information, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought, man, if there was any way we could even make it less likely to have mistakes where we accidentally send something, two MLC libraries in the same stack. Like I totally get why it has to say MLC because you guys have your own little, but I just thought I'm always about preventative, like, forget correcting something stupid. Let's just keep somebody from doing something stupid in the first place. And I count myself in there because I do dumb things all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, if while MLC is like a little consortium inside a consortium type of thing, and that's why they have the MLC thing on it. But for other libraries, you would have to do something like CAS dash NRC because we've got multiple branches or trails. I don't know, Warrensburg or Concordia or, Scenic Union, whatever. Somehow we still have to have those branch codes.
Rhonda, does so I know there are one, maybe two libraries where we send them to separate branches, but like CAS, don't all of those just go to CAS?
They do.
And so when you receive those, do you scan them again and it
No,
generates? No, you don't. You just take the receipt that's in there?
right, because it's already telling you it's going to Cass NRC or Cass Harrisonville.
Sure, sure. That
So
makes
it's
sense.
one less step.
Yeah,
It
no,
just
that
keeps
makes sense. See, we don't have a
routing.
multi-branch system, so we just scan everything to see like what patron it goes to or okay, well that makes sense.
Right. And
So
at Barry Lawrence, we do the same thing. You know, we just sort as they come in and we put them in our individual branch piles. And then we sort those to go out to our individual deliveries to those locations. But everything has like BLRL dash A for Aurora or M for Monette. But everything on the top of the receipt should be the BLRL because we do just have one location that they come to through the courier.
Same with Polk County Library. I get it and I just sort the way I have it and I don't reprint the paper. I just send it where it needs to go. And then if you look, I don't know if you guys are seeing the chat, but Miss Baker or Aaron Baker, sorry, I don't know if it's a girl or boy, that she sent out a little picture of their transfer things that has MLC on it and then the library's name. And that's how ours print as well.
So I took a look. My hope was that in the org unit configuration, there would be a field that just had the library name without the MLC prefix, and there is not. And we can't change the name of the actual library because that's what has all the MLC libraries file alphabetically together for our patrons in Aspen in any drop downs. So I will keep looking at it, but there's not an obvious place that would just pull the official name of the library without the prefix, unfortunately.
right, and
Looking at the
I
example.
totally Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say I totally understand the need for the MLC. I don't know if Equinox could dig out a field. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say that looking in the chat where they have the example template where the size of the font really is large enough, that does stand out, you know, to me fairly good as long as people are aware to kind of look at that.
But when I was looking at it, that one is actually, it looks like they're at the very bottom. It says it has a hold. So mine transfer script looks different than that one on Polk County's library. I was trying to, my video is not working, but my transfer script for Polk County Library, it has at just the very top the MLC and then the library name, and then it has where it's printing to, like who printed it out. This one looks like that one Baker sent. It looks like a hold receipt, not a transfer receipt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can edit both of those templates to have the same
Yes.
size. You just have to go into both of them separately and then save
Yes.
them locally.
And then you can make it smaller, the font as well. And that's
And
what
there
we did at
there is
Polk
good
County.
templates on the web page that people can borrow from and just copy over and then save in each of those templates.
I don't know if those are the ones that have large fonts, but you can definitely change the font. So I would suggest that you might take a look at that. And if your font is fairly small, consider making it bigger. Perhaps that would make it better. Heather or maybe I could talk with Equinox and see if it's an option, how difficult it would be. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I guess. So perhaps we could go that way. But if you consider, taking a look at your transit slips, see how big your font is, and if you need to make it bigger, bump that up possibly, and perhaps that will help us. So.
And this is my opinion here at Polk County Library because I've been doing transfers for so long. but it's not just when MLC came on. It all C libraries, all B libraries. I have gotten stuff way before they have joined. So it's just really training your brain, and we're human too. So and when you're constantly moving, and especially if there's libraries now, Polk County, I'm the only one who is unloading and loading, and then there's if I'm gone, there's one other person that's trained. So, but other libraries, if you have multiple people in the pot, it does make it a little bit difficult.
Okay. Moving on. Tomorrow I am meeting with Liz and Kate from the cataloging committee, and what they want from me, they're going to do a session at the users conference that is basic cataloging for circ people. So what are the questions as a primarily circulation person? What kind of questions would you like to know more about? What would you find helpful if I just understood this? It would make more sense to me. So I am open to suggestions because they sincerely want to make it practical.
I think one of the things that you could cover would be for search people how to use the Z39.5 search. If you know how to use the right search terms, you can usually find what you're looking for quicker, or you can just get barraged with so many copies. I think that would be something that would help circ staff if they're going to learn just some basics, so they could maybe add something to the collection. They don't have to touch the MARC record. It's already in the system. Some other library has a great MARC record, but just good import practices.
Okay, I've got some other ones that people have told me already. That, an overview of how holds work in general. A list of the check-in modifications and how that functions. Then it was like series, searching by series. Sometimes seems iffy to me. You know, is there a way that I can do it better? You know, it's in a series, but it doesn't come up in the series, and I know that's just how it's got to be the way that it's cataloged, but is there a way to do some of that a little better? Well, let me see. There was another one.
What about cataloging settings that affect circulation, like age hold protection?
Okay.
How long items are out? Like what does a cataloger set that affects circulation?
Okay. I'm writing here, so sorry. Okay.
I've got one. When you put on a hold for a TV video series, you can select between complete set or any part, and that any part really trips people up, and maybe more about that.
Any parts is basically no parts.
Right. Yeah,
Yes,
which
what
doesn't
the-
really make sense to
I
me.
know, exactly. Oh, I saw a thing in the chat. Was it shelving location? How do you determine that? I'll go back and look at the chat. Okay. At the same time, well, not at the same time that day, they want to do the reverse of that. So think, what are some things that circulators wish catalogers knew or understood better?
How hard it is to find series.
Yeah.
Have a standard name for the series.
Yeah.
And it was as well as books too. You have subtitles and titles.
And authors that write for each other and Lee Child,
Probably.
you know, and people like.
Does anybody else just think, wouldn't it be nice if there was a uniform shelving location list? Just like,
Yes.
I don't know that we'll ever get there, but that would be great.
I have so I do both circ and cataloging, so I wasn't gonna say anything, but something popped in my head and it might be gone right now. Oh gosh, what was I gonna say? I got nothing. I thought I had it and I don't.
One thing that came to my mind that affects both of those groups that I think maybe both of that people could use a refresher on is what happens when you merge bibs that have queues, and for libraries that display patrons' number in a queue, like what that can mean for their number when we merge bibs together, and what happens to holds queues when we do that. Because that is
I
a
think the
direct
whole
effect.
queue conversation in general would be really good somewhere.
I tell my staff to just not look at the queue, but I did remember what I was going to say. Sometimes the fact that I do circulation affects I wouldn't say acquisitions, but like if I have a donation of an item and I'm thinking about keeping it, and I look and I see that it's some random weird like movie tie-in edition that's going to be 15 pages different and add one more record when there are plenty of items in the system, I may not add it because that's just one more search result that somebody is going to have to sift through because it won't fit under the practice. So I don't know if that is anything about like how those affect each other.
Okay. I knew you guys would get going once you got started. More things would come to the top here. So this is great.
I know this might not do with a lot of people, but I work with homebound patrons that are in the nursing home. So, and I have talked to my cataloger about this. And they showed me how to do it, but hey, you have to click here, click there, and it's I don't know. Some of my homebound patrons like certain styles of books because they are getting older and heavier, but the books, but they also don't like how large books are because it gets heavier. So to see it, what the length of the book is, or the that would be helpful on my end actually to be a lot easier because I have a lot of patrons that are elderly and the
Laura,
size
have
of the
you-
book.
Laura, you could talk to Jamie at Wolfner Library, and she provides services to homebound people that are helpful to them.
Yes, I have been in contact with them as well on that, but thank you.
So it sounds like maybe just a rundown of like, when you're looking at the MARC code, where would you find the number of pages? And we can say, you know, the 245 is the title and the 300 is the description, you know, just something really
We
simple
had a
like that.
little cheat sheet or something like that, okay, this will help you on this. This will help you on this. Instead of you look at it and it's like, I don't know what the 800s do. I don't know what the whatever does. And if we could just have a little cheat sheet, maybe.
Don't most holdings have the page numbers on them though? I feel like a lot of times you can tell how many pages in the description of the holding, right? Most of
If
the
the
time.
catalogers done their job correctly.
Because I've had students say, no, my book was 350 and here's the same book that's got 375. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. If they could see it right there on the holding when they were looking in the OPAC.
Did that have to do with the different prints of the book?
Yeah, it's probably additions, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying
additions,
that
yeah.
page number's still there. It's
Usually it is.
usually there. That might be helpful. I like an older person, I can only do about a 200-page book or a 150-page book. I can see that. With my arthritis, I relate to that a lot.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I would like, and sometimes I just get in there and look at the prices. Is this a paperback book or is this a hardback book? If that was already in there, that would be sometimes helpful because I've got the group of people who only want a hardback and I've got the group of people who only want a paperback. And sometimes the only way to tell that is to look at the price.
There's a problem with that though. So the cataloging, in order to streamline the number of records for an item, if an item is within 10 pages, within so many centimeters, et cetera, we can add a field that says publisher, publishing date, and paging may vary. And put, like, I could have a trade paperback on the same record as a hardback. And the point of that is like, I don't have to put a hold on a trade paperback and a hardback I mean, obviously, if it has different content or is like a mass market, it's going to be on a different record. But you may not be able to find on the mark if it's a paperback or a hardback.
And that goes back to what Darcy was saying earlier. Combining those additions onto one bib is going to save the number of bibs that the patron has to wade through to get to the book they want.
Okay, well, thank you for all of the suggestions. We'll see, hopefully they can incorporate some of those into their session then. So the next one is not actually on the agenda that I sent out. I got a question yesterday about how libraries handle the removal of lost fees when items are returned. So you have an item out that's either gone, it's been lost, it's gone, it's aged to lost, it's overdue, and then the item comes back in, or something is long overdue and the item comes back in. How do different libraries handle that situation?
So in Neosho, the things that go to lost 7 days after that, we have 2 automatic renewals of 3 weeks each. So they could theoretically have a book for 9 weeks. 7 days past that last due date, if it's still not returned, it changes to lost on their account and charges them for the book. If it goes another 7 days beyond that, it goes to long lost and it incurs the unique debt collect charge of $12. Once they bring the book back, if it's in that first lost stage, it disappears the minute we scan it in. But if they bring it back in that next stage, we have to manually go in and forgive the price of the book, not the debt collect, as long as the book is not damaged and can be circulated again. So that's how we do it.
Okay, so how do you handle if it's, let's say, it's one of my books that was lost and now it's come back in?
So it's the same thing happens in the system, even if it's your book. So I don't initially know that it's lost when I've got it in my hand. Check the book, scan it in. It'll say this book has been lost just to let me know. And I go into the patron account to be sure the thing was taken off. And then I send it on to you. So you don't really, none of us really know what happens on your end. It was, in this case, it was my patron. It was your book, my patron. So the account's clear. So I don't know what happens to you. Do you get a loss list of charges? Do you see something?
Well, I think what the question is coming about because the library that brought the question has their settings. Well, there's three different settings in library settings that can kind of control this. So one would be void item or void lost item billing when returned. So if that's set to true, when your book comes back in, it takes off any kind of billing. The next one is void long overdue billing when returned. It's kind of the same thing. It takes off that bill. And then the last one is void lost max interval. And so I didn't know what that was. So I had to talk to Equinox. It says, items that have been overdue this long will result in lost charges being voided when returned, and overdue fines will not be restored either. It only applies if the other two things are true. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure if there is a thing in there that says, okay, if it's been gone for this amount of time, we're not going to void the bill. So
Ours is set up that way to only void that short lost. The long lost, it's set up to, I guess that would be the max interval then, because at that max interval, it won't void them.
So in Terry, your case, if my patron has one of your books out and it's overdue and it's long overdue,
Right.
and I scan it here and send it to you, and then you check in your transit, you're never going to see that you need to go clear a bill.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So some of our patrons could have a bill from you sitting there that
Right.
really
And
doesn't need to be there.
if it's in that long lost status, it's already gone to unique. There's nothing else that's going to happen. It's not going to go to unique again. It stays right there. So as soon as they come to the desk, I can look at it and see that it has been returned because it's not in their items out.
well,
And
right, but this might be our patron. They would never come to you.
right. Well, no. Okay, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so how do you report our patrons to unique?
No, not as far as I know.
So basically so you're never gonna know about those bills.
Right.
To be sitting there that don't need to be there.
Yes, they could be. Now I'm going to find out today though.
I
Okay.
don't think, so when they check out, so for example, if I have a scenic item, my bills don't go by Scenic's bills necessarily. They go by my bills and my rules.
That's right.
So you're not going to have somebody
The
else's
unique
bills
bill.
on your item.
That's right. It would
So,
go by Carthage
Is that
rules.
correct?
No.
Right. That's what I
Well, because lost and damaged fees are controlled by the owning library,
Yes.
not
Right.
the checkout library. And so I think the issue is we'll just take Cass. I've got my patron who has now returned a book, but it's got this bill on there that we have to go remember to take off, or we may not even realize that it's got this bill until the patron comes in and says, I brought this book back. So I think that's the issue.
Anytime I've encountered like a lost or damaged item from another library, when I go into the bill, it's going by my rules. So if it's marked as lost and you guys don't have an additional fee on top of that, it's coming off. Does that make sense? Like, I guess I'm not seeing, and maybe it's
No,
because we have to
that's-
manually check things in. So we're seeing any bills that are there.
so
Well, I
I've
think
had
what really, go ahead, Darcy, or whoever.
so I was just gonna say I have encountered like where I don't know if it's the time frame that each library chooses, but like a patron will return an item. I'll see that it's available and circulating, but they're still being charged for that item. So we go in and we void that bill because we can see that this is circulating. We're not gonna charge our patrons anything. So, and as soon as a lost item comes in, even if it's been lost for 4 years, we check that in and that bill comes automatically off. Sometimes we have to manually check it in if it's been deleted. Otherwise, if that doesn't seem to work for some reason, we void that bill.
Okay, so do some people forgive and some people void?
I forgive because I believe if you forgive, don't you have a record?
You have a record.
That's why I like that one better.
Our
See,
in-house policy, oh, sorry, our
No,
in-house.
go ahead.
Our in-house policy is to forgive so that we can annotate and say, like, I'm the one that forgave this and this is why,
Yep.
because if you void, it just wipes it.
Yep.
I
I've
just know that
been
we use the
investigating
automatic setting that comes with the evergreen setting that when it's returned, it removes it. I don't know if it says void. I think it's void.
Yeah.
Honestly, I believe there's only about 5 or 6 libraries who have this setting set so that so often, not always, often those fees are going to be taken off because the owning libraries policies are to remove those fines. So I think there's probably there's a very small number of libraries that don't have that set to true, and that's fine. But I just wanted to have the conversation so that everybody kind of understood how should I handle this when it comes in. So it sounds like many are forgiving, some are voiding.
So the short lost automatically voids. I don't care
Right.
about that. It's the history of the long lost, because sometimes they need to see that, you've had 12 books this year go to long lost. That's a lot of money you paid in debt collect because they incurred that $12 fee. It's not per item, it's per the bill. So they could have 6 long lost books, but 1 debt collect fee. Just to be clear about that. Unless they do it every month, that's different.
Can I ask a question? So the policies are that if an item is lost or damaged, then the owning library is what it goes by.
Right.
In that wording, when I think of lost, I think of it never comes back. Whereas in evergreen, loss just means it's been gone for a specific amount of time set by the owning library. Are also related whenever an item comes back, like one of our items comes back to us that has been lost, that goes away. The only thing that stays is if it reaches a point where it goes to unique, there is a fee that stays on there for unique. But the system used to void that. Now it does not. Now it is a system payment, which can look super confusing in the history of bills and payments because it looks like the patron has paid at the top, and actually the system has paid it out to make up for the fact that the patron owed it.
Ours will say account adjustment
Right.
after we scan it in. Okay. I didn't know if that was just unique to us. And what is unique? Is this for people that do you guys send this to collection agencies?
It's
Okay.
a debt collection
Okay.
agency. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually the same company that does our message bee now with all of our
Okay.
text messages.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you are one of those libraries that has this not marked to true, I just want to say you're under no compulsion to change that. But I just wanted to have the conversation so that everybody else knows, okay, what do I do with this fee that's now on my patron's account? So
I'd also like to say this may be a scenario where we want to maybe get Equinox to give us a report that shows how each of our libraries are set, because I think a lot of us may not even know how some of these billing features are set.
it's been so long ago that some of us came into the consortium that we may not remember. It is in library settings. And the 3 things to check off in the minutes that I send out, I will have those listed. So you can just go into library settings and look and see what your libraries are set to.
That would be great.
Rhonda, is that in those settings, is that, can we adjust how much per book per, because like I'd like to adjust my overdue rates, and I don't really know how to do that unless I just ask Equinox, and I'd rather just save them a phone call. So
I think it's set up to build the price that's in the bib record.
okay.
If you're
So
doing an
wanting-
extra charge, like we have a processing fee,
right,
then, and that's what you're looking to change, you should be able to change it on your end because we just changed ours.
right.
So Rhonda's right. If it's a item for, or if it's a bill for the actual item, it's going to charge what's ever in the actual record. But then your additional cost for whatever you can change and you can set.
So that's the one that's called price and not cost, because I know when you're processing a new book, both of them are there.
I would love to know the
I think
answer to
it's
that.
price. I think it's price, not
What's the
cost.
difference?
Well, sometimes you can get a deal.
That was my assumption. The
actual
price is what
cost.
you paid for it
Mm,
versus
right.
the cost of what you would charge the patron if you had to replace it. Am I thinking right?
Correct.
The
So
cost is,
sometimes those are the same, but sometimes they're not.
Don't accidentally
price-
put it in the deposit box, because they freak out when that happens.
You can hide the deposit box. We had that problem a whole lot when we started. You can hide that box.
price is what it costs, is the retail price that goes in for the patron. The cost is what we actually paid for it from Baker and Taylor or whoever.
Okay, way back in December, or no, November, because we didn't meet in December, we started a conversation dealing with making some changes, possibly with transits and how we do holds. And now, as part of this larger discussion of transit times and hold management, the executive board has decided that they're going to look into this. Back in 2020, 2021, somewhere back in there. Several of us were on a committee, the proximity committee, and we set up different things system-wide to increase or I guess you would say decrease the amount of time it took for one item, for a hold to get from one place to another place. So not just transit times in the sense of it physically took 4 days to get from here to here, but it was also setting things up, hold procurement, how it targeted the item, trying to bring those transit times down as low as we could. And so there's going to be a subcommittee of the executive board that's going to be working with Galen again to see if we can improve some of that, or if it, I don't know how it's going to turn out. And so some of the hold always go home, hold this kind of thing, I guess I would just say, can we leave it stable where we are right now so that they can potentially get in there and see what the actual times are and what can be done to just maybe with proximity settings or how we proceed consortium wide, because we're getting, I mean, back in the day, our average transit time was 6.6 days. I don't think that's where we're at right now. Or I would guess it's not, just from looking at some of Cass County's transit times. And so the goal, I don't know if we can get it to that with as many libraries as what we have, but the executive board is kind of going to run with that and see what we can do. Along with that, though, we did talk about being able to place a hold on an age protected item. So I went to Equinox, and at this point, they would do it for us if we wanted to pay a lot of money to do that. So the circulation committee has talked, and I've brought it to the executive board. And so it is our recommendation that you just go ahead and override those age protected items. This is what happens when you do it. I mean, I'm not big on overriding to circumvent what we're trying to do, but the purpose of getting that hold on there was, sure, it's going to go to all of your libraries people first, but then after hold protection dropped off, they would start going down the list. And that is what it does if you override. So it puts you on the list. All the age protected holds get filled first, and then it just automatically moves you into the list, if that makes sense. So I know for a fact Circ administrators can do it, system administrators can do it. Heather tested it. Circulators can do it. What was the other one that you said could?
The only account that I had that only had circulators also had serials, which I don't think is probably related, but I just wanted to mention it had that account had two groups. It had circulators and serials. I doubt serials can do it. I don't think it's related, but I wanted to mention it.
Okay, so the executive board is on board with this for just hopefully it will be a stop gap. Patrons, unfortunately, will not be able to do this. However, we as staff members or, front-facing circulation staff can do it for our patrons. It does need to be conveyed to them that all of that age protection still applies, but your name is on the list. You don't need to wait 6 months and try to remember to come back and put the hold on the list, or 3 months, or however many months it is. So I think it's better than nothing. Hopefully we'll be able to work with the hold management stuff with Unique to where potentially some of the age protection timelines can kind of drop shorter and shorter. But I just did want to let you know that we are starting to look into that. Questions on that?
I have a question, but I'm
Sure.
being more a devil's advocate here. What if you're saying that we can, my patron wants Scenic's books that just came out, but we don't have ours. I can override that, and then it will come through when Scenic is done with that. What if
It will come through when the age protection drops off.
drops? Okay, so here's my question. Because we all know that sometimes our system doesn't do what it needs to do. So what would your suggestion be if like Scenic sees Polk County Library's name come up and they don't want to send it? Does that make sense?
I don't think it will.
Okay.
Not
but
until the age hold protection's up.
But I'm saying, what if our system doesn't do what it normally needs to? Because sometimes it has glitches. And like I said, I am being a devil's advocate here. So
If it was Scenic, we would just send it.
okay.
Right. It's I don't think the owning library is going to have any knowledge of it. Once that age protection drops off, it's just going to be like a regular hold in the holds queue.
I think she
Okay.
means if
So-
the age protection dropping off part doesn't kick in and it goes because of a system glitch for the day it goes anyway.
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
we had a similar thing with our age hold protection for a lot of our stuff when we migrated, got set to the date we ordered and not the date we activated it. And we just sent it, you know, we realized it was a flaw, but we just sent it out. Our hope with this is that, you know, our library becomes aware of the books our patron wants that we don't have, and we can just order it and get it on that record then. You know, this gives us
exactly.
some marker that there's a book we don't have that our patrons want.
Right. And that's what we do here. I was just, I mean, probably overthinking it and
No, I totally understand. We're pretty, you know, it's kind of a fun thing to see all the things that we think are going to happen and then something else, you
Yeah.
know, sort of happens.
Or you
I
have new
agree with you.
staff all the time trying to be trained on every little nuance of evergreen, and they don't have a clue what it means to force action or age protection or anything.
right.
So all these things are going to happen regardless of our great ideas, I think.
So like I say, it is a teachable moment for your staff that, you know, if you were not already doing it, I think some libraries already were doing this. If your library was not doing it, you know, it's a teachable moment for your staff. I guess you could decide for your own library, no, we're not going to do that, you know, that would be up to you. So
I would,
But
I
we're not,
would just ask everybody, I don't know if in your library it's a cataloging or a circ or an admin decision or whatever, but really look at if you need to keep things on a long hold protection. I was one of the, you know, holdouts, you know, real diehards, you know, there has to be stuff on the shelves for when my patrons come in. But, you know, after the first 3 months, unless it's a really big title, that book's just going to sit more often than not. So I'm almost never using the 6-month hold anymore. And my shelves are still full. So I just really encourage whoever's the decision maker at that library to really look and see about using lower levels of that hold protection. You know, if you're set on 6 months, try out 3 months. If you've been at 3 months, try out the 1 month. Just see what difference it makes.
And I agree with Ron. We have changed our settings twice. We eliminated, you know, the age hold on a couple, and then we lowered another couple. And if you're not the decision maker, please bring it to your decision maker and talk about it, because it is important just to keep things moving around. And we have, like Ron says, we have plenty of things on the shelf. I think people are getting used to evergreen and how many things travel everywhere, that I think your patrons are used to it probably enough that is not an issue.
I know for
Right.
us, even though we're a small library, like there's like certain books that I do put the 6-month hold on, but that's because I know that half of my patrons are going to read it. And yeah, otherwise it's just like 3 months or 1 month, even if it's like a donated book or something.
Okay, other reminders. The upgrade to 3.13 is coming the evening of February 26th. We'll come back in the 27th, and boom, we'll be in the new version. So there are a few circ changes, not a whole lot of circ changes. The test server is up and available for you to get in there and play. So I would encourage you to do that. It is, because I was reading through like the, you know, evergreen documentation, and I kept looking, okay, it's not there yet, it's not there yet. And so finally, okay, now it makes sense to me because I was seeing the new version, so.
I want to make sure that I'm not crazy. This is my first time that I'm updating our manual. There's not really any big circ changes. There's been like some accessibility changes, like with colors and stuff, but there's nothing major, right? I was like going over it. I was like, am I missing something? Am I dumb? Like, I was expecting
Well, the
this
one
huge
thing,
change.
there's not. The one
Okay.
thing is, like, if you can imagine grids,
Yeah,
if it's the EG2, the angularized one, you can just
right.
drag and drop.
Okay.
And
So
so
it's
that
like
looks a little
functionality
right.
things that I noticed. Okay, all right. Woo. I'm like, it's like a 100-page document, and I'm like, man, oh man, I don't want to have to edit this again. So, okay, thank you.
Well, I think for catalogers, there's more changes. So if you are involved in cataloging at all, it might be worth and reports.
Yeah, yeah.
So there are some changes in that depending upon what you can get to that documentation just from that, the screen that comes up on that left side, or at least on ours, it's left side evergreen documentation. Just pick 313 and you should be able to get to almost anything you'd
Okay.
ever want to know.
Okay, awesome. Whew, thank goodness.
Okay. We're getting there. Scotch removable tape. We talked about it way back in November. The Circulation Committee discussed it, and we are fine with using it, but we kind of left it. My question is, the materials handling best practices document says, do not use tape on material. Then it says previously approved self-adhesive removable receipt paper is permissible. So do we just add Scotch removable tape in the previously approved sentence? I don't know that I want to take out don't use tape because we're regular tape.
No, I agree. Yeah, I
I
don't
do
think you
not
should
want
take that
that.
out. Yeah.
So
Yeah, this has kind of been tested on my end anyway. I tested it with everything I could think of. And to be honest, I have only had to use it once since November. This is not something we're going to need to use every day on 50 different pieces of paper. It's just something on that one weird item that you can't seem to get a transit slip to stick to it or a what. We don't have the receipt paper that's sticky. So it's not
okay,
too big
so
a deal, but don't use tape thing out because I know what will happen if you if you do that.
okay, so just for clarity, we are saying Scotch removable tape. Those 3 words are important. Scotch removable tape, because that is what we have tested.
It's in a blue box. It has to be, it's this one in the blue box.
And here's the deal. If you don't want to use it,
don't use it.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will add that in on that materials best handling and put it in that sentence with the previously approved things. Okay. Anything else? I did put in there that Equinox purged 126,216 patrons. The very first part of January, which is keeping our database leaner. So thank you if you were the ones who worked on that project. Anything else? And sorry, this is a long one. I thought, oh, at the beginning of last week, I thought this is going to be short. It's like, no.
All good stuff though.
All right. Well, make sure before you sign out that you have put your name and library in chat, but otherwise we will see you in February. Have a good day.
Thank you.